Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first here, this is a webcam, FAA webcam shot of Old Harbor, Alaska there on Kodiak Island, kind of southwest down the coastline there, southwest of Kodiak State Airport. And you can see this is a good example of ceilings and visibilities unlimited, nothing but sun there, and temperature 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Compare that to Buckland, farther up to the northwest there, or way up to the northwest there, up toward Kotzebue. Nothing but sunshine there as well, with ceilings visibilities unlimited. Big difference, though, temperature-wise. Same time this afternoon, while Old Harbor is 36 above, Buckland was 24 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, and so even though they have the same conditions, Buckland about, let's see, about, I guess, 60 degrees colder than Old Harbor. Anyway, looking at the hazardous weather graphics, winter weather advisory for tonight, or actually through tonight through Sunday night here for the, or at least through Sunday, for the western Aleutian areas, snow and blowing snow, winds gusting anywhere from 30 to 50 miles an hour, and additional snow showers could reduce visibilities out here to less than a half mile at times. And also a winter weather advisory that goes into effect here for tomorrow night through Sunday here for the Yukon Delta and the lower Yukon River Valley areas up there like Grayling and Holy Cross, Flat, in those areas, looking for 4 to 6 inches of snow during that time period, again, starting tomorrow night through Sunday with winds gusting 30 miles an hour. So you could see visibility is reduced to a half mile or less at times there as well. And about the same there for the Yukon Delta, looking at, again, 30, maybe gust 40 along the coast, strongest wind gusts there, and anywhere maybe 4 inches of snow there, again, reducing visibilities down to less than half a mile at times. Otherwise, off to the, or up to the north, we've got a winter weather advisory out for overnight period tonight for the entire Arctic coast. Snow that's going on today with the breezy conditions on the west side. That's going to be slipping eastward, or continue to move eastward tonight. And so we've got just the winter weather advisories, possible visibility is reduced in blowing snow down to less than half a mile, and then conditions improving for tomorrow. And then for the eastern North Gulf Coast, Yakutat, winter storm watch for heavy snow out, and that's for tomorrow night through Sunday, looking for anywhere from, let's see, check my notes here. They're looking at 4 to 6 inches of snow possible there for the new snow for tomorrow night, or actually 4 to 9 inches here for the Yakutat area for tomorrow night and Sunday, and also for the greater Juneau area, or the greater Juneau area, Admiralty Island, Haines, Klondike Highway, Lynn Canal, all those areas under a winter storm watch as well for heavy snow. Could pick up 4 to 6 inches of snow for tomorrow night through Sunday, and that could also is looking at possibility of some freezing rain developing too. So moving on to satellite imagery, you can see system aloft moving through, and so showers diminishing today across the panhandle. 12-hour amounts ranging from a quarter to, around a third of an inch or less. For example, Juneau had about 4/100ths of an inch today, while Port Alexander had, or Hoonah had about a quarter of an inch. And then lighter amounts down to the south with showers again tapering off, maybe some clearing showing up, Wrangell and Metlakatla, both only 1/100th of an inch during that same time period. And rolling this through again, you can see drier conditions clearing off the coast here, so continue to lose the shower activity, but it's going to be really slow to end overnight tonight for the Panhandle. Clear skies, southern Alaska, back to the northwest as we saw, all the way up into the northwest, well, up to the north slope, and not too bad on the eastern Arctic coast as well. Got this system here responsible for the snow advisory, or the winter weather advisory tonight. You can see westerly flow carrying impulses of moisture. This one a lot more organized, although it's not all that strong, and the precipitation isn't all that heavy with it either, but just clouds here with that one farther to the east and then another one back here to the west. All that's going to be moving across the area tonight for the supporting that winter weather advisory up there. Otherwise, not too bad, just some fog here over the northern Bering Sea and some clouds scattered around. System here pushing across the Aleutians. Winds gusted 50 to 60 miles an hour ahead of the front at AKwx, and they picked about a third to a half inch of precipitation. That's since much improved, just some scattered showers with much lighter winds this afternoon, snow showers in the colder air back towards Shimmy, and that's going to increase along with the winds here tonight through tomorrow and actually through Sunday as well with rain, but really light amounts. This is really not much of a precipitation producer, at least that shows up in any of the recording stations here. On Alaska, there's a few hundredths of an inch there, and of course not reaching the Alaska Peninsula yet, but that will. On the chart, there's the low center, 970 millibars in the front. Possible gale force winds, nothing really too heavy here, pushing into the Fox Islands area and starting to increase over the Pribilofs, just low clouds today. So had some IFR flying conditions just due to the ceilings under 1,000 feet. Visibility is not all that bad. Was some fog around. Also up toward the Bering Strait, a little bit of fog, but nothing too serious. Clear skies, sunshine, Kodiak, South Central Alaska, on up into the interior. Some variable clouds here and there. And then the light snow of that trough on the Arctic coast, and that whole mess spreading eastward. Default low here in the Gulf of Alaska due to the outflow winds, actually gusting up to 35 miles an hour at Seward this afternoon, and 45 mile an hour wind gusts out of the north for Thompson Pass. So the channeled areas here seeing some pretty brisk winds. Peterson Lagoon had peak gusts of 53 miles an hour this afternoon, and that cold air just kind of comes out over the ocean and reinforces the low center there. As it warms, it rises, pressures fall, so that kind of locks it in place. Showers diminishing here over the Panhandle continue tonight, but linger until tomorrow morning there with one last very weak disturbance. Arctic high pressure over the Yukon dominates all of interior Alaska. As the ridging aloft moves in, those gusty outflow winds will diminish considerably later tonight and tomorrow. Looking for light winds here across all of interior Alaska. Not the case for the Alaska Peninsula. Winds coming up, gales, and mostly rain, mixture of up to the Pribilofs. Another trough brings some more blowing snow chances to the western Arctic coast. The other one weakens, dissipates, moves off to the east. And there's a 974 millibar low for tonight. Tomorrow deepens to 962 millibars as it pulls northward. So that's good for storm force westerlies for sure here across the central Aleutians and possibly in the Fox Islands. And also very windy conditions developing here for the northern Bering Sea into the southwest interior. Snow and blowing snow along the coast, gradually trying to push northward. Warmer temperatures behind this warm front. Rain, Kodiak Island, a mixture just to the north there. Doesn't look like maybe southern Cook Inlet, possibly Homer, Kachemak, Kamishak Bays getting into the snow late tomorrow afternoon. And probably waiting until evening. That'll push on up into south central Alaska, or at least into northern Cook Inlet, and eventually Prince William Sound tomorrow evening, and then overnight tomorrow night. Otherwise staying clear tomorrow, or for Saturday in the interior, and another few skiffs of snow with a weak trough on the Arctic coast, maybe the North Slope, and still lingering rain and snow showers, but really about the end of the precipitation. Tomorrow afternoon should be pretty good. I think partly, mostly sunny, kind of a break before the next system rapidly moves in. Actually, a new low develops, tracks up into about the Yukon there. Cold front draped across the Panhandle for periods of rain, gusty winds, gale force winds, and moderate amounts of snow here for as this system tracks in. Anywhere from 6 to 10 inches of snow likely to fall in the Susitna Valley starting tomorrow night and through Sunday. Winter weather advisory blowing snow for the Sterling Highway. Could see gusts 30 miles an hour with several inches of snow, reducing visibilities at times there. And this front trails out into the southern Bering Sea to a couple more centers out there with numerous snow showers. Still well below zero in the north and northwest part of the state. Lows for tonight, minus 30s, or 25 to 35 below Tanana Valley, eastern interior. Even the North Slope on out to the Arctic coast won't be as cold as you had been, like this morning, 44 degrees below zero at Dead Horse. The clouds will keep it milder there, and warming here over the Alaska Peninsula, upper 20s to lower 30s, about the same for the Panhandle, and below zero south central Alaska. And for the highs tomorrow, 20 to 25, some areas stuck in the upper teens. either side of zero in the Tanana Valley, below zero from there northward to the Arctic coast, and the Panhandle lower 30s north to lower 40s south, lower to mid 40s for the Alaska Peninsula eastern Aleutians. And for Sunday morning, your low temperatures here still below zero north of the Alaska Range, even the Copper River Basin about -2 there, Gulkana, and then 25 to 40 below for the North Slope out to the Arctic coast, but milder mid to upper 30s for the Alaska Peninsula, and your highs in the 40s to mid 40s for the Panhandle, lower 40s Alaska Peninsula, on Alaska to Kodiak Island, and the highs in the mid to upper 20s, south central Alaska, actually south of the Alaska Range, north of the mountains, single numbers to a little below zero, and then staying below zero all the way up across the Kobuk-Koyukuk Valley areas, North Slope, on out to the Arctic coast, looking at highs anywhere from 15 to 25 below for your highs, and near 40 over the central Aleutians.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
I'm meteorologist Amanda Bowen with your look at flying weather. For Saturday morning, expect a lot of IFR conditions across the entire Aleutian chain, all the way up into the southern Alaska Peninsula. Also along the northwest coast, along the Arctic coast, and looking at the Panhandle, mostly marginal conditions, but we will see some spotty IFR along the southern Panhandle. Saturday afternoon, we expect that IFR to spread north and east into the southern Kenai Peninsula, as well as the southern portions of the YK Delta and the northern Alaska Peninsula. Some improvement along the Aleutians, especially for the western Aleutians to VFR, some to MVFR, but still maintaining the IFR conditions for the eastern Aleutians and southern Alaska Peninsula. IFR conditions right along the northwest coast of the state, and improvement for the Panhandle to MVFR just in that higher terrain. For Sunday morning, we still see more spreading of those IFR conditions as that low pressure center continues to move to the north and east. So IFR for the entire Panhandle and south central, as well as most of the YK Delta, stretching west out into the Bering Sea. Also the entire north coast of the state south to about the Brooks Range IFR conditions. For Sunday afternoon, a lot of improvement with just marginal conditions for much of the Alaska Peninsula, a mix of marginal and VFR conditions for the rest of the Aleutian chain. Still some IFR for south central, stretching northward to about the Yukon River, and still IFR for the Panhandle for Sunday afternoon. Taking a look at the passes, at Aktuvik Pass, we'll see some MVFR conditions in the morning, but improving to VFR in the afternoon. Same story at Adigan Pass. Maryland Lake Clark, actually the opposite, starting out VFR and deteriorating in the afternoon to MVFR conditions. VFR conditions all day at Rainy Pass, but we will see some MVFR on the west side of Rainy Pass. Same thing at Windy Pass, with VFR all day, but MVFR on the north side in the morning hours. Isabel Pass VFR and Mentasta Pass VFR, but again with those MVFR conditions on the north side of the pass in the morning hours. VFR at Tanita, VFR at Portage, but will be deteriorating quickly in the afternoon to IFR conditions with that low pressure moving in, and VFR all day at Chilkoot and White Passes. For freezing levels, we see all that warm air that low pressure is going to be bringing into the south of the low. So warm air coming into the Aleutian chain with freezing levels as high as about 8,000 feet for the central Aleutians. Surface freezing levels stretching all the way through the northern Gulf and down into the terrain of the Panhandle. Icing conditions, a lot of isolated moderate icing with that low pressure system for the entire Aleutian chain, just about into south central. Some considerable moderate even for the northern Gulf coast, as well as into the northern Panhandle between about 6,000 and 11,000 feet. Isolated moderate for the rest of the Panhandle on Saturday. Looking at the jet stream, we have our low pressure system just north of the Aleutian chain with the strongest jet winds just south of that low, about 160 knots out of the southwest, decreasing rapidly across the Alaska Peninsula to about 75 knots out of the south over the Yukon Delta, and 120 to 130 knots out of the north over the Panhandle areas. Looking at 9,000 foot winds, we see that same low all the way through the atmosphere. So we have our strongest winds at 9,000 feet on the south side of that low, about 90 knots out of the southwest coming into the southern Alaska Peninsula, 40 to 50 knots on the north side of that low. Very light winds over the west coast, 5 to 10 knots, and about 15 knots out of the south and southwest coming into the Panhandle. For 3,000 foot winds, that same low, same story with those strongest winds to the south side of the low, 70 to 80 knots out of the west and southwest coming into the Aleutians as well as the Alaska Peninsula, about 30 knots out of the south into south central, and 10 to 15 knots out of the south and southwest for the Panhandle. Finally, taking a look at turbulence, quite a lot of considerable moderate from that low pressure system, stretching all the way from the southern Kenai Peninsula west and southwest to along the entire Aleutian chain through the Alaska Peninsula, as well as some considerable moderate over the Panhandle, that kind of central part of the Panhandle around the Juneau area. Stay tuned for more Alaska weather.
Have you ever been to the beach and noticed litter like plastic bottles or foam takeout containers on the sand? Or maybe you've been to a river or bay where there's a bag or a car tire stuck in the mud on the shore, or a bunch of deflated balloons that say "Happy Birthday" floating in the water? All of that junk in the water or on the shoreline is considered marine debris. It's anything solid and man-made in the ocean or Great Lakes that is not supposed to be there. And anything people use every day can become marine debris if they don't dispose of it properly. And I mean anything. The most common items we find when we do shoreline cleanups are plastics. But we also find rubber, cloth, glass, metal, and paper litter. Sometimes the debris is so tiny, like a plastic microbead from your face wash, that you can barely see it in the water. Marine debris is more than just trash in the ocean. Sometimes fishers lose their gear like fishing traps, nets, or fishing line, and it continues to drift through the water, catching animals for a long time. We call that derelict fishing gear, and it's marine debris. Have you ever seen an old boat left behind on a shoreline? Abandoned and derelict vessels are also marine debris. So let's review. Anything we use every day can become marine debris if we don't dispose of it properly or if it goes into the water by accident. Marine debris can be very small or can be very big, and anything in between. But most importantly, marine debris is one of the biggest pollution problems facing the world's oceans and waterways today.
How does marine debris impact the ocean, animals, and me? Would you want to swim in a beach littered with trash? Of course not. And the animals who live in the ocean don't either. The difference is, they don't have a choice. Marine species often get tangled in debris, from fishing nets to six-pack rings. If they get caught, they could get injured or even die. And even if they don't get entangled, many animals mistake plastic debris for food and eat it. This fills their stomach with junk they can't digest. Debris can also damage important habitats, like coral reefs, by breaking or smothering them. Corals serve as the base of the marine ecosystem, and impacts here can be felt all the way to you and me. Plus, plastics have harmful chemicals in them. Fish eat plastic, we eat fish. The question is, can those chemicals harm us? Marine debris also hurts the economy. It costs a lot of money to clean up, and people don't want to go to dirty beaches. Boats and ships could run into large pieces of debris too, or get their propellers tangled. We need the ocean and everything in it, and the ocean needs us to keep it free of debris. What can can we do about marine debris?
A lot of the trash that's in our ocean is plastic.
And that marine debris is hurting our environment, economy, and health.
The problem will only get worse.
Unless we change the way we consume and dispose of products. There are solutions,
And together, we can prevent litter from ending up in the ocean. Some people might say,
well, I'm just one person, so I can't make a difference.
but that's just not true.
If each person who creates trash, and that's just about everyone, took action, it would add up to a whole lot of change.
So what can we do?
Well, the ultimate solution is prevention. And we need to keep that as our highest priority.
We can reduce, reuse, and recycle to keep debris out of the ocean in the first place.
You can bring your own shopping bag, drink out of a reusable bottle, and participate in things like a shoreline cleanup.
Join a group cleaning up the beach, or grab some friends and clean up your street. It's easy.
Be more conscious of how many disposable plastic items you're using. And if you do,
Where are you putting it? In the trash can? Whoops. Or in the recycling bin?
so here's the challenge. The next time you finish using a throwaway item, a bag, a bottle, or utensil, answer the question, where is this going? Because ultimately, when you throw stuff away, there really is no away. It has to go somewhere.
So keep asking yourself this important question.
How will you keep your trash from becoming marine debris?
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Let's take a look at the sea ice edge. Sea ice has been expanding towards the west a little bit with some easterly winds, but with low pressure coming up into the Bering Sea over the next couple of days, we'll see northerly winds behind it, and that is going to help expand the sea ice back south a bit. We think that the sea ice edge may expand south anywhere from about 40 to 50 nautical miles in the next week or so, but at this point we're not quite expecting it to get to St. Paul. Taking a look at winds and seas over southeast Alaska, generally for Saturday, winds out of the north and west, 15 to 30 knots for the inside waterways, 10 knots out of the southwest actually for the northern Gulf, to about 20 knots out of the northwest for the southern Gulf. Seas anywhere from 7 to 10 feet across southeast. For Sunday, winds and seas increasing significantly. So winds now generally out of the south and southwest, 40 knots over the northern Gulf, 30 knots over the southern Gulf, 30 to 40 knots also over the inside waterways, with gusts to 45 knots over those central inside waterways near Petersburg. For south central, winds relatively light on Saturday ahead of that low pressure system. So we have 10 to about 25 knots. Seas also relatively low in the 5 to 6 foot range, 7 feet down near Kamishak Bay, and about 2 feet up in Prince William Sound. But we see quite a lot of change into Sunday as that low pressure system moves closer. Winds picking up quite a bit, anywhere from 30 to 45 knots. Seas also increasing significantly into Sunday, around 18 to 20 feet for the northern Gulf. For the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, winds for Saturday out of the south and east, 25 knots up near Kodiak Island to about 40 knots out of the south for the southern Alaska Peninsula. Seas ranging from about 6 to 10 feet north to 18 feet on the south side of the southern end of the peninsula. Big changes here again on Sunday, with winds increasing quite a bit, 45 to even 60 knots out of the southwest on Sunday. Seas increasing as well, ranging from about 14 feet up near Kodiak Island to 35 feet on both the north and south ends of the Alaska Peninsula. For the Aleutians, quite a busy day on Saturday. Winds out of the southwest and west ranging from about 30 knots over the western Aleutians to as high as about 55 knots for the central Aleutians and the southern portions of the Alaska Peninsula. Seas very high on the south side of the Aleutians, 28 to 34 feet, 16 to about 18 feet on the north side of the Aleutians. And big changes again here on Sunday. Winds pretty consistent, still 40 to even 60 knots, but out of the southwest now. And seas coming down a little bit in spots, but remaining very high, 25 to 35 feet on the south side of the Aleutians, still about 17 to 18 feet for the western Aleutians. Taking a look at the west coast for Saturday, winds out of the east and northeast in general, ranging from around 20 knots in Norton Sound to about 40 or even 45 knots over the Bering Sea and down near St. Paul, 45 knots there. Seas where there's not ice at this point, about 14 feet on Saturday. For Sunday, winds out of the north, pretty consistent, 30 to about 45 knots. Seas coming up near the Pribilofs to about 21 feet. For the Arctic coast, for Saturday, winds generally out of the southwest, 15 to 20 knots, except a little bit of a northeasterly wind off of Port Clarence there, about 25 knots. For Sunday, a wind shift, so winds out of the northeast now, anywhere from 10 knots to about 35 knots coming out of the Bering Strait. Recapping the weather, we've got our big low pressure system over the western Aleutians. That's going to be spreading high seas and snow into the Aleutians and up into south central and even into the Alaska interior through the weekend. Thanks so much for watching Alaska TV Weather.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal, pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.